I'm a particular lady.
Hello.
Hey there.
I'm Micah.
I'm Tiff.
And we are Margay and Binturong. And in this video, we're going to show you how to make
one of these. Not the mannequin, but the earrings.
Tiff, who's this video for?
This video is for complete beginners who don't know anything about wire wrapping or jewelry making. We're going to show you some really basic techniques here that you can use for a lifetime.
Awesome. And some of this has also been covered in some of our other videos on how to make sun catchers. You might want to check those out too. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the video. See you at the end.
All right, so in order to make these fun, elegant shoulder duster earrings, you are going to need a few things here. I would pick at least 5 to 6 beads, or maybe 4 if you don't want them too long, but you want enough beads so that they can be long and flowy and dangly. So I have here some 6mm Swarovski at the top, 8mm round Swarovski, 6mm, 4mm, and then the very tiny 3mm, just so it kind of looks like it's descending in size. So this is what I'm going to be showing you how to make these with today. These are some sterling silver ear wires here. We're going to practice using copper wire, however, just because copper wire is great for beginners. You can also use aluminum wire if you're starting out. It's really soft and malleable and easy to work with, so great for beginners and inexpensive. And you will need pliers. I have some really basic pliers here. So this is chain nose pliers, which are narrow. They have a narrow point and they have smooth jaws on the inside. And then these are some round nose pliers to make loops with, and some wire cutters. So in order to make these earrings, we're going to show you how to make links, headpins, which is a termination point for your links, and how to attach them to ear wires. Okay, so I would recommend putting your beads in something. It doesn't have to be a dish, but I like to pick something kind of heavy just in case I hit the table, or if I accidentally bump this and it doesn't go, all my stuff doesn't go flying everywhere. So I'm going to try and keep them in the original order. So if you have a color specific design that you're following along with, then I would try and keep them in the order that they're in. So I'm working with 24 gauge copper wire that is about 44 inches long. I am accustomed to working in one solid length. I feel like it's a little bit more, it's easier to reduce waste and also not run out of length when you're working on stuff. So that's how I'm going to show you today. Okay, so the very first step is we're going to show you how to do a head pin. I'm going to start with the very bottom dangle of the earrings. So we're going to take this tiny 3mm crystal and we are going to create a little head pin. So you're going to take your round nose pliers and you're going to grab the wire with your fingers and take the very point and the tip of your pliers, and you're going to just do just the tiniest turn. And you see I'm using my thumb to kind of brace that. So now you should have something that looks like that. So you take your chain nose pliers and just a tiny gentle pinch so that it squeezes into itself like that. And then you're going to smash this so that it hardens and stays in its shape. So I like to put it in deep into my chain nose pliers and just give it a really hard squeeze, and that will flatten it so it keeps its shape. Oops. And now you have your first head pin. So head pin is just a general jewelry, terminology for a termination or stopping pin so that you could have a little dangly end. Okay, so we're going to thread our bead on there and we're going to make our first loop. So just give yourself a tiny bit of space. You don't need a lot of space. Like if you make a huge gap there, your links, all of your links are going to turn out super long. So you just need a tiny little room there. If you see how much space that is. And then we're going to we're going to go down a little bit. So for you guys that are beginners, if you want a quick way to eyeball it, I just find a spot, maybe the middle of my pliers, where I'm going to be putting my wire when I start making loops. I just lay the pliers there and I see where they line up, and then I'm going to actually put the pliers in that spot so that when I do a half turn, I have enough length to rotate around here. So, and then we are working with one continuous length of wire. Another reason why I like to do this is because I can just grab with my hands, since it's a little bit more natural and comfortable to use your hands, and you have all this length to work with. So you just grab the wire and bring it over. And we have our first loop. So you're going to take your chain nose pliers and you're going to brace the loop without crushing this crossover point where the wires cross over. And you want to brace both sides of the loop, because if you only grab one side when you try and do stuff, if you could see, the loop is like rotating around. So brace the loop, and you're just going to use your hands and start wrapping around the stem of this segment until you wrap until you get down to the bead, and then you start overlapping the previous wraps you just did and moving upwards until you make it back up to your pliers. And then once you get there, you're just going to snip maybe like halfway into the width of that barrel there. So it's going to have a little nub sticking out, enough for you to tuck it in just a tiny bit of length there so that there's nothing sticking out and it doesn't catch your hair or anything. So if while you were doing that your loop got a little bit crooked or something weird like that, if you hold it sideways, you can just check really quick and see if it's aligned, and if it's not, put it back in your pliers and then just use your fingers and straighten it out like that. Ta-da! Your first link. So now we're going to make the other side here, and we're going to repeat the steps for making a head pin. This is a really fast, practical, functional head pin that I like to do. And they're kind of cute. You can also make head pins in different ways, like you can use a torch. So we made that little turn, if you remember, and then we're squeezing that tiny little turn into a nub there, and then we're going to put it into our pliers and smash it. All right, we're going to thread this the smallest bottom bead in our design for the other side of the earrings. When I make earrings, I like to work back and forth instead of like finishing one entire side of the earring and then moving on to the other side. I prefer to go back and forth just so you can check back, make sure everything looks similar. So same thing, we're going to give ourselves a tiny bit of space there and make a right angle. And then we're going to move down maybe that far, just using our pliers to gauge the distance. And we're going to do a half turn. It should look like that. And then we are going to pull that wire across to complete the circle. Take that off. I usually will try and pick the same spot on my pliers. You can actually take some marker and mark off some of your favorite, if you want really small loops, you can make a mark there, or medium-sized loops or large loops. The further down you put your wire, like if you put your wire right here, when you make your loop, you can have a gigantic loop. You could do this, but if you do this for every single link that we're going to make, you're going to have just incredibly long earrings. So I picked the mid-range. Technically, when you work with really small beads like this, I would make small loops, but because we are working with entry-level pliers that are a little bit chunky, it makes it kind of challenging to brace really tiny loops without actually crushing all the other stuff that's going to be going on. So So we're going to brace this here and start wrapping around and going downwards, moving downwards towards the bead until we meet up with the bead, and then we're going to start overlapping and going back up. And then we're going to snip about halfway into the barrel there, if you can see that. So there's a little nub sticking out. So when you tuck, you're going to brace one side of your jaws against the barrel of the coil, and then you're just going to use the other jaw to press in, just like that. Yay! So now we have 2 of these. So usually I'll check at every step to see if they look equal, and actually this looks not bad. Pretty close. Very nice. So it's pretty normal when you're first starting out that you're not going to have stuff come out the same all the time. So we're going to show you what to do if your earrings are uneven or things like that. Okay, so now we're going to start making just regular links without a head pin. So you want to give yourself, I feel like this is probably 1.5 inches. So if you want to take a ruler and just measure somewhere on your finger as a mental note, that way you don't have to use a ruler every time. Just measure on your finger, where is 1.5 inches, and then use that as a reference point in the future.
Do you want a ruler?
Sure. Mike is going to get me a ruler so I can see if I guessed this length correctly. How good my imperial. 1.5 inches. 1.5 inches would be like right before this bend in my knuckle.
Right before the second callus.
Yeah. Of the many calluses. So it was like right here. Let's see. Did I do it? Yeah, actually, it's pretty spot on. Actually, why am I using that when I could just do this? Oh, wow, look at that. Exactly 1.5 inches. How crazy. Yeah, so use a ruler, find the spot in your hand. That way you don't have to actually use a ruler every single time. So 1.5 inches.
It's the little things in life.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do the same method. You know, wherever you like to put your wire to make what size loops you want. I like mid-range loops. So you're going to put that right here just as a reference for where to place the plier when you rotate. And then you're just going to do half turn like that. And then you're going to bring this around with your finger. So now that you have such a short length, I would not recommend using your hand to, wrap it around. It's really short and your fingers are going to get fatigued. So I'm going to use the plier as my hand extension. So I like to rotate halfway around and then change position and then rotate around again and then rotate around twice. I like to wrap 2 times and then start overlapping. There's another way that you can wrap. I don't usually like to do this way because it kinks up the end of your wire. So you could just leave your hand in one position and then just start doing that, like wrapping around. But if you see how bent out of shape the end gets, and you might actually need to use this length. So that's why I don't prefer to do that way. So I like to go half turn, change position, half turn, change position, half turn, change position, half turn, change position until we get up to our pliers. And then we're going to snip. And if you have entry-level wire cutters, don't forget to tuck this. You might need to kind of wiggle your wire cutters a little to get the wire to cut. So now we're going to thread our next bead in the design, which for us it's going to be this really light purple one. For you guys, it could be whatever beads you chose for to follow along with this project. Okay, so we're going to make a link following the same steps we did before. So we're going to make another loop. So give yourself a tiny bit of space here, like that much room, and then you're going to put the pliers maybe that far to do a half turn, and you're going to bring it around with your hands. Oops, sorry, that was the wire slapping things around. Be careful when you work with wire this long because you could slap yourself around and hit yourself in the face, and that's not fun. So before you close this loop, part of making wire work and beading and jewelry making is for not forgetting to the sequence in which you do stuff. Sometimes you'll just be closing your loops and then you're like, oh crap, I was supposed to connect this like that. So make sure you remember to do that. So we just thread the head pin and then we just pull it through that loop. And now we can close the loop. So now you have stuff in your loop. So when you brace, just make sure you are trying to not crush this together and smashing the wires because they'll cut into each other, and not crushing this crossover point either because the wires will cut into each other. So, all right, so now we can just start wrapping with our hands, which is a lot more comfortable and also faster. And then we're going to start overlapping and moving upwards until we get to the pliers. And then we're going to snip about halfway into the width of our coil, and we are going to tuck that end and just make sure it's not sticking out and getting stuck in our hair and stuff. I always worry about that when I make earrings for people, is the getting stuck in the hair. Okay, so we have our first dangly segment now. Okay, we're going to do the other side. So same process. You're going to give yourself about 1.5 inches, which is probably like that long. You're going to make that right angle and use your finger to brace. And then you're going to use your pliers to kind of gauge how far to place and do a half turn. You're going to use your finger to just bring it over and complete the circle, and get your chain nose pliers to brace your loop while you start wrapping the wire around. So we're going to rotate around and then do rotate behind, and that's 2 rotations now. So we're going to start trying to overlap onto our previous coil. And the reason why I only wrap twice and then I start overlapping is because you want to keep these relatively short if you have this many links in your earrings. We have about 6 beads on there, and these are meant to be long, fun, dangly earrings, but they will get crazy long if your coil is really long, because you have 2 coils on each link. So it adds up really quick. Okay, I'm going to throw this on there and thread that through. Okay, so repeating, same steps. So you're going to create a loop. Just give yourself a tiny little space to make a coil. So make that right angle like that. And then we're going to move down. I'm kind of used to where the placement is, so I'm just going to move down that far, and we're going to bring the wire around. And before we close this off, don't forget to add your other dangly part. So we're going to thread this through, and we're going to hook that in just like that. And then you're going to reach across this loop to brace and start wrapping. So you might find that you're pulling really hard when you wrap, and it's making your link kind of wonky like this. If you can see, it's crooked, which is fine. If you notice that's happening, just go ahead and see if it's like that, just go ahead and push it straight and then continue wrapping. So the reason why I do a double layer of wrapping is because we're going to snip this here right about there with enough length so that we can tuck this in. So the reason why I do the double wrapping is because it feels more sturdy to me. So what happens is if you only have a single layer of coil, the link has a lot more wiggle room to bend, and when you bend metal back and forth like this, it can get really brittle and break. So I feel like when it has a fatter coil, it actually blocks the bead from moving as much. It prevents the link from having as much wiggle room, if that makes sense. All right, so I usually will hold my link to the side, sideways, just to see if it's like nice and straight, and that looks pretty good. if it's like kind of twisted like this, you know, if the loops aren't facing the same direction, just grab one loop. You can use your fingers and then just rotate so that they are in the same orientation. So when you hold them sideways. So cool. So now we're going to check and see if these are the same length. So the problem with laying them out to check the length is that they might not lay flat, because this is essentially, we're making a handmade chain. So we will need to hold these up to check. So I would recommend holding these out right in front of you. Holding. But you want to line up, when you hold them out in front of you, you want to line up the tops of the loops. So we're going to hold it up right now. So if you see, I have the top of the loops lined up. You can't see the middle because my thumbs are blocking, but you don't need to see the middle. What you need to look for is the bottom here.
Is that in focus?
I think so. Yeah, so what you need to see is the bottom, and it looks like they're pretty even. So we're good. Moving on. So now we have this medium purple here, and then you're gonna give yourself like 1.5 inches, which was, I measured my finger, so now I know what spot to put it in. Okay, we're gonna go maybe right here, make that loop, bring the wire around.
I have a question. Earlier when you were making the head pin and you squeezed the loop that you made to make the tip of the head pin.
Yeah, that tiny little bend.
Yeah, and you said harden it. What are you talking about?
Like metal, a lot of metal work hardens when when you change the shape, essentially. So any kind of bending, any sort of like flattening. So essentially we were flattening it with our pliers. We're gonna snip that here. And I guess because I don't know the specifics, but there's something about the crystalline structure in metal. So something crystallization. Science. Yeah. But yeah, so basically metal gets really brittle the more you...
Is that why I can't twist this with my fingers anymore, because it got hard?
You probably could twist it with your fingers. You just need a better grip on it.
You weren't supposed to start twisting it and prove that I was just...
Oh, sorry.
I can still twist it with my fingers. I was saying I don't want to.
I was like, here, let a pro show you. I'm just kidding. Okay, so...
She's not kidding.
So don't forget to give yourself a tiny bit of room before you make your right angle. So you only need maybe that much space. And then we're going to move down a little bit to do a half turn, half rotation, and we're going to bring the wire around with our fingers. And now we are going to thread the next, thread our segment that we made. Ooh, look how cute and dangly these are already. I love dangly earrings. They're my favorite. Okay, so we're going to try and wiggle this in and brace the loop without crushing these two together. So make sure they're free moving and make sure this is not being crushed. Cool, everything's in the clear. We're gonna wrap. So wrap till you get down to the bead, and then we're gonna start overlapping. Oops. Going upwards, there we go. And we are going to snip with a little bit of length, just a tiny bit of length there, so that we can tuck that in. And then let's take a look at our link. That looks pretty good. Yeah. So now we have 3 links. We're going to repeat on the other side. Actually, I'm going to move that out of the shot so it doesn't try and focus on there. Okay, so another 1.5 inches. And we're going to move down a little bit and do a half turn, just like we have been. You're going to bring the wire around with your fingers. You're going to brace without crushing that crossover point. And you're going to wrap a couple of times. And then we're going to start. I usually will kind of use my fingers just to redirect the wire so it starts wrapping upwards. And then I'll use my pliers to finish off. So, and then you wrap until you get up to your chain nose pliers and you don't have room anymore. And then it's time to snip and tuck. So I'm going to snip right there so that it has a tiny nub that I can tuck in. There you go. Cool. And then we're going to thread the next segment. Actually, just kidding. It needs a bead first and another loop. Okay, making said loop by giving ourselves a tiny bit of room. We're going to make a right angle here. We're going to move down a little bit and then do a half turn. And then we're going to bring this around with our hands. And now we're going to thread that on. Eep! I almost dropped the... Okay, threading on. Doink. All right, so we're going to brace this here. Actually, we don't need pliers because it's so long we can use our hands. Yay! Yeah, just because using hands is so much more comfortable, faster. If you're new to jewelry making, it probably feels really weird to use a plier in each hand, especially because if you're not used to working with your left hand, it's extra awkward, but you'll get better over time. I promise. Okay, here we go. We have 3 links on each side, and now we need to compare again. So if you can see how hard it is to get them to lay straight, this is why I don't lay them down to compare the length. So we're going to hold them up. You want to grab your earrings and hold them up in front of you again. Okay, so we are looking for, so you're going to line up the tops of your loops right here, and then you're going to check out the bottoms there, and that looks pretty good. It looks like this one is just slightly longer, the right side. But that's okay. So we're going to keep going, and we're going to make some modifications if we need to, if the unevenness gets out of hand. So the next...
That's horrible. We need to fix the lighting on that.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah, all the light's coming from the back side, so it's all backlit. It's all silhouetted.
Oh, okay. Silhouetted might be good too. Okay, so we're going to make that right angle for our next link. You're going to use your pliers, or if you're not used to eyeballing where to put your things yet. And then we're going to brace. Use your other pliers to start wrapping. So one's behind, one's in front, one's behind, and now we're going to start overlapping. So it's a really subtle change in direction, but just try and overlap what you previously did and keep going upwards until you get to your pliers. And we're going to snip with just the tiniest bit of length there so that we can tuck that in. Tuck it in a little more. There we go. Cool. Now we're going to wrap the next crystal. This is a 6mm crystal for our design. I really love to play with gradient colors and also, you know, descending sizes and stuff. So don't forget, when you make your loop and you make your right angle, you want to give yourself a tiny bit of space. Not a ton of space, it's very small. You're going to move down a little bit and then make that loop. And then don't forget, before you close your loop, we're going to thread our link segments on here. All right. So we're going to brace that. Oh wait, I forgot. I don't need pliers for this. I'm so used to having plier hands. And then we're going to wrap until we get down to the crystal and then start overlapping and moving upwards. All right, and we're going to snip right there. Woohoo! We're almost done. Look at that. Gorgeous. Okay. And we're going to do our other side. So about 1.5 inches. We're going to make that right angle. We're going to move down a little bit to make a loop, a half turn, and then bring the wire over with your hands. We're going to close this off. So what you might do also, which I've done a lot, is you might be pulling really hard, and then the next thing you know, your loop just got pulled really tiny. So now you have like a tiny loop or something like that. Let's just go with this so that we can show you what to do if that happens. So we're going to change direction a little there. Start moving the wire upwards. Uh-oh, I feel a sneeze coming on. Actually, it's fine. Okay, so we're going to snip and tuck as we have been doing. Okay. And we're going to put our crystal on. All right. And give yourself a tiny bit of room, right angle, and then move down and do a half turn, and then bring it around. And you're going to thread your other link segment for the other side of the earrings. Oops, sorry. Sorry, those are my pliers. You end up grabbing and setting down your pliers constantly, just over and over again. Grabbing plier, setting it down, grabbing another plier, setting it down.
Checking the focus.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna snip this.
You said yeah, like you didn't know what I was talking about.
That's what you were doing?
No, just like.
Oh. Okay, so if you see that one's kind of tiny, so that means our earrings are most likely going to be uneven. So if you do that thing again and hold it up in front of you, so you want to make sure the tops of your loops are lined up. If you see, it helps if I put my hands, have a point of contact between my two hands. That way they're not like I'm not shaking or moving. So point of contact between my two hands, line these up, and then check the bottoms. And it looks like they're pretty close. The left one might be a little bit, just the tiniest bit short, but that's totally fine. I mean, it's not going to be noticeable. So I dropped my wire. Okay, cool. Only 2 more links to go. All right, so we are going to do 1.5 inches.
So what do you do if your links are uneven, or if you're
Well, we're gonna show that at the end, because it's probably gonna happen, because it's, it's not unavoidable, but I've just never bothered marking up my pliers with a marker or anything. So, but you could do that, and you would probably avoid any unevenness. Actually, no, it might still be uneven, because the length of your coils on each link could change the length. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's really it's very unlikely that it'll be like absolutely perfectly symmetrically even,
So when you say marking your pliers with a marker, what do you mean?
Like just drawing a line where you want to put your wire every time you make a loop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which I mentioned earlier, but
I wasn't paying attention.
Oopsie, I accidentally squished my loop. If you notice, I instead of crimping that little, tucking that nub, I accidentally squished my loop, and now my loop looks like that. That's totally fine if that happens. Oh, there are 2 ways you can do it. Actually, these pliers are too thick. Never mind. So you take your round nose pliers, and if your loop gets squished, you can just use your nail and pull it down. You can see I'm pulling it down the... Ow, be careful you don't pinch yourself with the... like I just did. And then, can't get this off. Okay, cool. Yay, it's round again. Look at that. Magic. Okay, the gathering. Sorry.
Dumb.
So we're going to thread this big, beautiful hunk of 8mm Swarovski sparkliness. Okay, so you are going to do the same thing. So give yourself a tiny bit of room. The good thing about these round nose pliers is they're so thin at the end, and I love that. That's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna bring that loop around. What are you doing?
They look like birds to me.
Oh.
Like,
Micah was like whispering and doing something weird on the side here.
I was going, It's so dumb. And then I didn't even notice I was doing that. And then this one over here is the other one. I was like, God. Anyway.
Micah's reached a point of delirium. He's he's so sleepers.
You tell them what time it is?
It's like 3:30 in the morning, I think.
4:30 in the morning.
Night owls. Okay, cool. So we have that. If you notice, this link is slightly like the links are kind of not in the same orientation. So just grab with one end with the pliers and with your fingers and rotate so they're straight. Woohoo, look at that. So dangly and the colors are pretty.
Woo!
What, Pillsbury Doughboy?
No, night owls.
Oh, night owls.
You can't edit it out. No, don't do this to me.
Woohoo! You're like...
I'm so sorry I said that.
Owls are really in right now. Are you guys into the owl thing? There's like owl purses and jewelry and all kinds of stuff. It's so interesting how animal motifs kind of come in and out. Like right now, it's like I see hedgehogs everywhere. Do any of you have a pet hedgehog? Oh my gosh! Did you guys know that hedgehogs are like exotic imported pets? Well, I thought that, I don't know, I just never thought much about them, but I just found out that they're not in the Americas, like, at all. Like, they don't naturally exist here.
Tiffany's confused because a couple of our hipster acquaintances have hedgehog pets.
Yeah, I just see hedgehog pets all the time, so I was like, oh, they must be like, I don't know, just... But I didn't know that they don't really exist here in the Americas, in the wild. They're imported from Europe and the other side of the world. Maybe Asia too. I didn't finish reading the Wikipedia thing. Sorry, I've just been kind of going, but I figure you guys are pros at making loops now, right? We've done it 10 times, I think. But if not, allow me to continue narration. So you're going to brace your loop and make sure you don't crush that link there. Make sure you don't crush that. And then you're going to wrap, wrap, wrap until you get down to the bead. And then you're going to start going upwards.
I looked up shoulder dusters just a minute ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and the term originates from the Art Deco period.
No way. It's been around that long?
Yeah, and originally they were small pendant...
Tassel earrings.
Yeah, they're kind of tassel, but they're like pendants. Sort of like this one, but maybe about 3 inches. And they got the name shoulder dusters because they resembled feather dusters.
We're going to hold these up again. Do we need to show the angle again, or do
Sure,
you think they know the drill?
Let's go for
Okay, cool. All right. So you're going to line these, have a point of contact with your 2 hands so that you can keep it steady, and then look at the bottoms there, get them to stop wiggling. Wow, they're incredibly straight. I mean, even. I just don't even know how that happens. Well, I guess. Okay, so for the last link, let's purposely make them uneven so that I can show you guys. Okay, so we're going to give ourselves 1.5 inches, which is that spot on my fingers that I measured earlier. We're going to make a right angle. You're going to move down a little bit and bring that around. I'm doing it again. I'm making it really even here. I'm just going to make this really tiny.
Quit showing
There we go.
off.
There we go. It's just like muscle memory at this point. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to make this loop extra tiny. Now we're going to make the other one not extra tiny, and then I can show you guys what to do if your earrings are uneven. So, keep wrapping. Yeah, when I first started making jewelry, it was I hated making earrings. It was so frustrating because it was so hard to get them to be the same length, and you know, if I made wire forms for the earrings, like squiggly shapes or circles, it was just, I had a really hard time getting them to be the same length and stuff. So I actually stopped making earrings for a while.
You probably still don't like making earrings that much, do you?
I do, actually. I don't mind.
Uh-huh.
It is like, especially because I'm so anal, so don't forget to give yourself just the tiniest bit of room when you make that right angle. And then we're going to move down and do a half turn and then bring the wire over. Yeah, especially because I'm so anal. Making earrings is a very tedious and meticulous process, making sure that when you're using crystal or glass or things like that, because they're man-made, they're a lot more consistent, which is great. I love working with gemstones, but the gemstones, if you're getting them hand cut and they're not like machine calibrated, finding matching pairs is just such a back-breaking, neck-hurting process, because you have to like lean, really just like line them up. At least for me, because I'm insane, I guess. It has to be exactly the same shape, same thickness, same everything. And to me, that's like, okay, that's an appropriate match. I can live with that. But yeah, so there's a lot that goes into making earrings. But I guess you don't have to make it such an exact match. That's just what I like to do, because I'm really particular, I guess. I'm a particular lady. Okay, so we're making another loop. So we're going to make this one not tiny, and the other one was tiny, so that way I can show you guys what to do if you hold up your earrings at the end and you're like, aw, dang it, these aren't the same length at all, which is going to happen a lot. All right, and then we're going to change direction here and go back up. One more time. All right. Tuck that in. Okay, so thread this last bead. If you guys had less beads, you're probably done already. If you had less than the 6 beads and whatever you picked. All right, so.
Are we gonna put these on our website by any chance?
Oh, sure. If you want these exact crystals, this exact shape and layout and color shades and stuff, we'll put together a set for you guys, so you don't have to worry about trying to find what is this? This is 6 different colors in 1, 2, 3, 4 different sizes. So yeah, if you really like this design, we will work on getting a listing up in our Etsy shop.
No. Here, we'll just put a link. Put a link down below.
Micah wants to show off his work. This is an arrow he's using. It's a cute arrow.
This is my best one yet. But yeah, we'll put a link down below. We should just put it on our website for this one.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, you're in charge of that.
Okay.
You do that. Okay, so last comparison. Oh, look at how cute these are. Okay.
Do the camera thing again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So see, if they're not laying completely straight, so you kind of need gravity to help you see if they are the same length here. So the same thing, you want to line up the tops of your loops, and then I like to put my hands together so that I'm not like so what so if you notice this one with the tiny loop, it makes a big difference. If you see the bottom, actually it's not that big of a difference, but it is. Here, I'm gonna move this up and just keep the camera there. Oh, it's not focusing. Yeah, so it is a little bit shorter.
Yes.
Not by a lot.
Not by a lot at all.
But it's a little shorter, and I guess for me that would I'd be like, no, I can't. If you're making it for yourself, it really doesn't matter. Also, people like asymmetrical earrings. So.
Yeah, or you could just like tilt your head to the side a little.
Just all day, tilt one head to the side. Okay, so what I find easier to do is to attach them to the ear wire, so I have something to grip them from when I'm doing adjustments or things. So these ear wires have an opening. Not all ear wires have an opening. I like to work with these because it's a lot less complicated once you want to attach them. So I'd recommend finding ear wires that have an opening and aren't soldered closed. If they are soldered closed, when you end this link, you would have to make sure you do that thing where you're like, oh, before I close the loop, I better thread the ear wire on. So there you go. But since these are easy, we are going to show you. So find which side the open side is on. So on these ear wires, the open side is over here on this side. So this is the open end facing the actual wire part of the ear, of the hook. And you're going to try and grasp just half the open half. So you don't want to try and grip it here and then try and open it. That's not going to work. So just the half where the open end is, and you're going to brace with your fingers, and then you're just going to rotate outwards a little bit. So you don't want to open loops ever by actually uncurling the loop, because now your loop is going to get all deformed and it's hard to get it back into shape. So you just kind of, you move them to the side like that. So that's how you open loops that have a cut in them. So you're going to hook that in just like that.
Maybe on the other one.
And then
we could try zooming in on when you do the second one.
Okay. And then you're just going to brace with your finger and then rotate it back close so it meets up. And that way it keeps its nice round shape. It's not all deformed from you like undoing the loop. Ooh, look at that. Okay, so here, let's zoom in here. Okay, so you're gonna grab that half and brace with your finger, and you're just gonna rotate just a little bit, just enough so that there's now an opening there. Little bits. And then you're going to just hook that in, and then you're going to grab that half of the loop again and close. All right, there you go. Okay, so the one that had the tiny loop, when you do that thing and you hold it out in front of you and you see that one of your earrings is shorter, for the shorter one, some hacks you can do is, because we have so many loops here, we can actually, if you just give a little light squeeze on some of your loops, it doesn't take a lot, it adds up really quick. If you just see how subtle that squeeze is, just that much. So because I did 2 of them, that's going to add a millimeter or 2, and a millimeter or 2 was all that it was off. If it's off more than a millimeter or 2, then you want to do more loops, squeeze more of them so they get longer, get elongated. The ear wire, I will actually just match up the bottoms of the ear wire. So if you see the bottom curve of the ear wire, I have those lined up, and then I just hold it up to eye level, and it looks like this right one is still a little bit shorter if you see the bottom there. So we're going to continue that and just squeeze the loops a little bit more, and it's not super noticeable when you wear them that there's anything different about the loops. So we're going to squeeze this one just a little bit. You don't want to squeeze them too much because then maybe it might be noticeable, but if you're just squeezing a little bit, it's not noticeable. I feel like I said that really fast and mumbled it. I'm sorry. If any of you are not from California, this is just, I feel like this is how a lot of Californians talk. We speak really fast and just like mumble our words. There we go. So you line up the bottom curve of your ear wires and you hold it up to eye level and just let them hang, and it looks like they're perfect.
Fantastic.
So it's okay if if you notice this big round bead isn't quite lined up, that's totally fine. Usually what the human eye looks at is like where things, the major points. So the major points are the ends. As long as the ends match up, that's totally fine. Woohoo! We've done it! We've made earrings and they're the same. Okay. So hope you enjoyed. You can basically, all the techniques you learned here, you can make necklaces, you can make your own handmade chain, you can make a bracelet with this link method. You just do that all the way around. How about that? Well, I hope you had fun making these. Now you are equipped with the skills and techniques to make pretty much any dangly earrings. Well, that have beads that are drilled through the. So that was not a good hand motion. Sorry. But like in.
Can we do that over again? Because
okay.
I don't want to put that on, just in case.
All right, so now I hope you had fun. Now you are equipped with the skills and techniques that you can use to make pretty much any kind of dangly earrings that have beads with holes drilled in like this. So, woohoo!
And I guess we will we'll put these beads and some wire and some ear wires on Margie and Binturong.com in our little shop. If anybody wants to get these particular beads, of course, you're welcome to get them from anywhere you like. If you appreciate our channel, you can support us by getting this little packet on our website. And if you don't want to, that's cool. But if you got some value out of this and you learned something new, maybe you could like and subscribe.
And check out our other videos if you want to learn how to make sun catchers and stuff. Like and subscribe.